Have you ever met someone for just a few minutes and somehow felt as if your life had changed forever? Not because they were rich, not because they were famous, but because something in their eyes made you feel seen. This is the story of a young African woman who arrived in Seoul with nothing but a suitcase, a dream, and a heart full of hope. She never imagined that one rainy evening would bring her face to face with one of Korea's most powerful billionaires. And she definitely never imagined that their love story would one day shake Seoul itself. The cold autumn wind swept through the streets of Seoul as Alma stepped out of the subway station. She pulled her coat tighter around her body and looked around nervously. It had been 3 months since she left Ghana to begin a new chapter in South Korea. Like many international students, she had arrived with excitement, but reality had been much harder than she expected. Everything felt different. The language, the food, the culture, even the way people hurried through the streets without looking at one another. Back home, people smiled. They greeted strangers. They stopped to talk. In Seoul, everyone seemed to be rushing somewhere. Still, Alma refused to give up. Every morning, she attended her classes. Every evening, she worked part-time at a small cafe near Hongdae to pay her bills. Life wasn't easy, but she believed that hard work would eventually pay off. That belief kept her going. One Friday evening, after a long shift at the cafe, dark clouds gathered above the city. Within minutes, heavy rain began pouring from the sky. People rushed for cover. Cars splashed through puddles. Umbrellas appeared everywhere. Alma stood beneath the cafe awning and sighed. She had forgotten her umbrella. Perfect, she muttered. The bus stop was several blocks away. She checked her phone. The battery was almost dead. Even better. For a moment, she considered waiting for the rain to stop. But Seoul's rain had a habit of lasting longer than expected. Taking a deep breath, she pulled her bag over her head and started running. The rain soaked her almost instantly. Water splashed onto her shoes. Her hair became wet. She laughed despite her frustration. There wasn't much else she could do. As she hurried across a busy intersection, something unexpected happened. A black luxury sedan suddenly stopped nearby. The back door opened. A tall man stepped out holding a large umbrella. Alma barely noticed him at first. She was too busy trying not to slip. Then her foot landed on a wet patch. Everything happened in seconds. She lost her balance. A gasp escaped her lips. She prepared herself to hit the ground, but she never did. Strong hands caught her before she fell. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stop. The sound of the rain faded. The traffic disappeared. There was only the stranger standing in front of her. His dark eyes met hers. "Are you okay?" he asked. His voice was calm and warm. Alma blinked. "Yes, I think so." The stranger smiled slightly. "You don't sound very sure." She couldn't help laughing. "I was about to become best friends with the pavement." His smile widened. The expression transformed his serious face completely. For some reason, it made her heart skip. "Then I'm glad I arrived on time." Alma stepped back carefully. "Thank you." "You're welcome." For a few seconds, neither of them moved. Rain continued falling around them. People passed by without noticing. Yet something felt strangely different, as if this simple encounter mattered more than it should. Finally, the man handed her his umbrella. She stared at him. "What about you?" "I have another one in the car." "You don't have to do that." "I know." The answer caught her off guard. He wasn't helping because he had to. He genuinely wanted to. Alma hesitated before accepting it. "Thank you, really." The man nodded. Then his driver stepped forward. "Sir, we're running late." Alma noticed the respectful tone immediately. The expensive car, the tailored suit, the professional driver. Who exactly was this man? Before she could ask, he gave her a polite bow. "I should go." She nodded. "Thank you again." He turned and walked back toward the car. Just before entering, he looked back one last time. Their eyes met again. Then he was gone. The black sedan disappeared into the rainy Seoul night. Alma stood there holding the umbrella. Something about the encounter felt unusual. She couldn't explain why. Maybe it was his kindness. Maybe it was his smile. Or maybe it was the strange feeling that somehow this wasn't the last time they would meet. Meanwhile, inside the luxury sedan, the man remained silent. His driver glanced at him through the mirror. "Chairman Kang, should we proceed to the meeting?" Kang Min-jun nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He had attended hundreds of business meetings, signed billion-dollar contracts, met world leaders and celebrities. Yet for some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about the young woman standing alone in the rain. Her smile had been genuine. Her laughter had been real. And in a world filled with people who wanted something from him, that felt surprisingly rare. As the car disappeared into the city lights, neither Alma nor Min-jun realized that fate had just taken its first step. A step that would eventually lead to love. A step that would challenge powerful families. A step that would force them to fight for a future together. But for now, they were simply two strangers. Two strangers whose lives had just crossed beneath a Seoul rainstorm. And neither of them knew that everything was about to change. Sometimes, the people who change our lives don't arrive with grand promises. They simply keep showing up. Again. And again. Until one day, you realize they have become the part of your day you look forward to the most. Alma thought the man from the rainy night was gone forever. After all, what were the chances that an ordinary African student and a Korean billionaire would ever meet again? But fate had other plans. The following week felt normal, at least on the surface. Alma attended her classes, worked at the cafe, and tried to keep up with her assignments. Yet every now and then, her mind drifted back to the stranger, the way he had caught her before she fell. His gentle smile, the umbrella he had given her. She even kept the umbrella carefully in her apartment, not because it was expensive, but because it reminded her that kindness still existed in a city that often felt cold and distant. One afternoon, her university announced a special networking event. Several successful business leaders would be attending to speak with international students. Alma almost didn't go. She had a pile of assignments waiting for her. But her friend Mina refused to take no for an answer. "You need a break," Mina said. "And who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone important." Alma laughed. "The only important person I need to meet is my professor." Mina rolled her eyes. "Just come." A few hours later, they arrived at one of Seoul's most luxurious hotels. Alma immediately felt out of place. The marble floors sparkled. The chandeliers hung from the ceiling like works of art. Everyone seemed confident and successful. Meanwhile, she was silently praying that nobody would notice how nervous she felt. The event began with several speakers sharing their stories. Business founders, investors, corporate executives. Then the host stepped onto the stage with excitement in his voice. "Our final guest needs no introduction." The audience applauded. A large screen displayed a photograph. Alma froze. Her heart skipped a beat. No, it couldn't be. Then he walked onto the stage. The same man from the rain. The same eyes. The same calm smile. The room erupted with applause. Kang Min-jun, chairman of Hanseong Group. Alma stared in disbelief. A billionaire. Not just wealthy. One of the most powerful business figures in South Korea. Suddenly, everything made sense. The luxury car. The driver. The confidence. The respect everyone showed him. Mina nearly choked beside her. "Do you know who that is?" Alma nodded slowly. "I think I do." "What do you mean?" Alma wasn't sure how to explain that Korea's famous billionaire had once stood in the rain making sure she didn't fall flat on her face. On stage, Min-jun spoke about leadership, success, and overcoming challenges. But unlike many powerful people, he didn't sound arrogant. He spoke honestly. He talked about failure, about loneliness, about the pressure that came with carrying thousands of employees' futures on his shoulders. The audience listened carefully. So did Alma. For the first time, she saw the man behind the title. Not Chairman Kang, not the billionaire, just Min-jun, a human being, When the presentation ended, students were invited to meet the speakers. Most rushed toward Min-jun immediately. Alma stayed back. There was no point. A man like him probably met hundreds of people every day. He likely wouldn't even remember her. After all, their encounter had lasted only a few minutes. As she turned to leave, she heard a familiar voice. "Miss Alma." She stopped. Slowly, she turned around. Min-jun was standing behind her. For a moment, she simply stared. "You remembered my name?" He smiled. "You told me while apologizing for nearly falling into traffic." Alma laughed despite herself. "That was not my finest moment." "I disagree." She raised an eyebrow. "Almost falling is impressive?"
No.
His eyes softened. "Still managing to laugh afterward is." For a second, neither of them spoke. The noise of the crowd faded into the background. It felt strangely easy talking to him, as if they had known each other longer than they actually had. "Did the umbrella survive?" he asked. Alma smiled. "It did." "Good. I was planning to return it." "You can keep it." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." Their conversation continued. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. They talked about Seoul, travel,
Food.
family, dreams. For the first time since moving to Korea, Alma found herself speaking freely. She wasn't worried about making mistakes. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply being herself. And surprisingly, Min-jun seemed to enjoy that. Most people treated him differently after learning who he was. Some became nervous. Others became overly friendly. Many wanted favors. Alma wanted none of those things. She treated him like a normal person, and he found that refreshing. As the evening came to an end, Min-jun glanced at his watch reluctantly. "I should go." Alma nodded. "Your driver is probably waiting." He smiled. "He usually is." They shared a laugh. Then a brief silence followed. Neither seemed eager to end the conversation. Finally, Min-jun spoke. "Would you like to have coffee sometime?" Alma blinked. For a moment, she wondered if she had heard correctly. "A coffee?" "Yes." His expression remained calm. No business. No formal event. Just coffee. Her heart began beating faster. Not because he was a billionaire, but because she genuinely wanted to see him again. "I'd like that." A smile appeared on his face. A real one. And somehow, seeing it made her smile too. Neither of them noticed the curious eyes watching from across the room. A woman stood near the entrance. Elegant, beautiful, and clearly unhappy. She had known Min-jun for years. Long enough to recognize when someone caught his attention. As she watched him talking to Alma, jealousy burned inside her. And in that moment, she made a decision. A dangerous one. If this African girl thought she could enter Min-jun's world so easily, she was mistaken. Very mistaken. Meanwhile, Alma walked home that night with a smile she couldn't hide. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know about the enemies already watching. She didn't know about the challenges ahead. All she knew was that she was looking forward to coffee with a man who made her feel comfortable in a city that once felt overwhelming. And sometimes, that's how love begins. Not with fireworks. Not with dramatic confessions. But with two people discovering that they genuinely enjoy being together. Love rarely arrives all at once. It doesn't always happen the moment two people meet. Sometimes, it grows quietly. A conversation here. A shared laugh there. A message that makes you smile when nobody is looking. And before you realize it, the person who was once a stranger becomes the first person you think about when you wake up, and the last person on your mind before you sleep. That was exactly what happened to Alma and Min-jun. A few days after the networking event, Alma found herself sitting inside a small cafe overlooking the Han River. She checked her phone for the third time. Not because Min-jun was late. He wasn't. In fact, he had arrived 10 minutes early. She was nervous. More nervous than she wanted to admit. The door opened. Min-jun walked in wearing simple clothes, far different from the expensive suits she had seen him wear before. For a moment, he looked less like a billionaire and more like an ordinary man. And somehow Alma liked that. His eyes immediately found hers. A smile appeared on his face. "There you are." Alma smiled back. "There you are." Neither of them knew why such simple words felt special, but they did. Their coffee meeting lasted nearly 3 hours. Then came another meeting, and another. Soon, spending time together became natural. They explored different parts of Seoul. They walked through busy markets, visited quiet parks, shared meals in tiny restaurants hidden between crowded streets. With every meeting, they learned something new about each other. Alma discovered that Min-jun loved late-night walks because they helped him escape the pressure of his job. Min-jun discovered that Alma never gave up on people she cared about, no matter how difficult things became. She learned that despite his success, he often felt lonely. He learned that despite her struggles, she remained hopeful. And slowly, without either of them planning it, their walls began to fall. One evening, they sat near the Han River watching the city lights reflect on the water. The air was cool, comfortable, peaceful. For several minutes, neither spoke. Surprisingly, the silence didn't feel awkward. It felt safe. Finally, Alma glanced at him. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. Most people asked about his company, his wealth, his future plans. Very few asked if he was happy. Min-jun stared at the water before answering. "I don't know." Alma listened quietly. "I spent most of my life chasing success," he continued. "And I achieved it." He laughed softly. "At least that's what everyone tells me. But success isn't always what people imagine." His voice became quieter. "The higher you climb, the fewer people you trust." Alma understood more than he realized. She knew what loneliness felt like. Different circumstances, same feeling. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she gently touched his hand. A simple gesture, yet it carried more comfort than 1,000 words. Min-jun looked down at her hand, then at her. Something shifted between them, something neither could ignore anymore. As weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. They texted each other daily, shared photos, jokes, stories about their day. Alma became the person Min-jun wanted to talk to whenever something good happened, or something bad. And Min-jun became the person who made Seoul feel less lonely for Alma. One afternoon, while studying at the university library, her phone buzzed. A message from Min-jun. "Look outside." Confused, she walked to the window. Down below, Min-jun stood beside his car holding 2 cups of coffee. Alma couldn't stop smiling. Her classmates noticed immediately. "Who is making you smile like that?" one asked. Alma quickly hid her phone. No one. The entire table laughed. Nobody believed her. The more time they spent together, the harder it became to deny their feelings. Even their friends noticed. Mina certainly did. One evening, she looked directly at Alma. "You like him?" Alma nearly dropped her spoon. "What? You like him?" "No, I don't." "You're smiling." "So?" "You only smile like that when his name comes up." Alma groaned. Mina laughed. "Just admit it." The truth was Alma couldn't, because admitting it would make everything real. And reality was complicated. Min-jun wasn't just any man. He was one of Korea's most powerful billionaires. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. What future could people like them possibly have? The question haunted her. A few days later, Min-jun invited her to a private rooftop garden overlooking Seoul. The city sparkled beneath them. Thousands of lights stretched into the distance. The view was breathtaking, but Alma barely noticed, because Min-jun seemed unusually nervous. That alone surprised her. A man who negotiated billion-dollar deals looked like he was struggling to find words. Finally, he spoke. "Alma." She turned toward him. "I need to tell you something." Her heart immediately began racing. The seriousness in his voice made it impossible to look away. Min-jun took a deep breath. Then another. For the first time since they met, he looked vulnerable. Completely vulnerable. "When I'm with you, everything feels different." Alma felt her pulse quicken. "You make me laugh." His eyes stayed locked on hers. "You make me forget about pressure, expectations, and everything waiting for me at work." The city lights shimmered behind him. But at that moment, Amma saw only him. No matter how difficult my day is, talking to you makes it better. His voice softened. And somewhere along the way, he paused. I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Amma's breath caught. For a second, the entire world seemed to disappear. There was only this moment. Only them. Only the truth neither had been brave enough to say. A tear formed in her eye. Not because she was sad, but because she felt exactly the same. I've been trying not to fall in love with you. Min-jun smiled. The kind of smile that comes from pure happiness. Amma laughed through her tears. But I failed. His smile widened. So did I. They both laughed. The tension disappeared instantly. And for the first time, everything felt simple. Not billionaire and student. Not Korean and African. Just two people in love. Slowly, Min-jun reached for her hand. Amma didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as though they had always belonged together. The city continued moving around them. Cars passed. Lights glowed. People hurried through their lives. But on that rooftop, time seemed to stand still. Neither knew what challenges awaited them. Neither knew how fiercely some people would oppose their relationship. For now, all they knew was this. They had found each other, and neither wanted to let go. Yet somewhere else in Seoul, someone was watching. Someone who had already decided that Amma did not belong in Min-jun's world. And that person was preparing to make her first move. A move that would soon threaten everything Amma and Min-jun were building together. The weeks following their confession were some of the happiest Amma and Min-jun had ever experienced. For the first time, neither of them felt alone. Amma no longer felt like a stranger trying to find her place in Seoul. And Min-jun no longer carried the weight of his world by himself. Whenever they were together, everything seemed lighter. The long work hours, the cultural differences, the pressure, the uncertainty. None of it mattered when they were sitting across from each other, laughing over dinner, or walking through the city after sunset. But happiness has a way of attracting attention. And attention was exactly what they didn't need. One evening, Min-jun arrived at their usual restaurant looking unusually tense. Amma noticed immediately. Something happened. He sighed. My mother. Amma's smile faded. What about her? Min-jun looked down for a moment. She wants me to get married. The words landed heavily between them. Amma tried to remain calm. That's normal, isn't it? It would be, if she wasn't already planning the entire thing. Amma stared at him. What do you mean? My family has someone in mind. The knot in Amma's stomach tightened. Min-jun reached for her hand. Amma, listen to me. She looked into his eyes. I don't want anyone else. His voice was firm. I only want you. Amma wanted to believe that love would be enough. But deep inside, she understood what this meant. Min-jun wasn't just dealing with family expectations. He was fighting generations of tradition, influence, and power. His family wasn't used to hearing the word no, especially from him. Over the following days, the pressure intensified. His mother called constantly. His father arranged family meetings. Board members casually brought up marriage during business discussions. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about Min-jun's future. Everyone except Min-jun himself. One evening, he was invited to a private family dinner. The atmosphere felt more like a business negotiation than a meal. His mother sat elegantly at the head of the table. His father remained silent. Several relatives were present. After dessert, his mother finally spoke. There is an important announcement. Min-jun already knew where the conversation was heading. The Choi family has agreed. Min-jun's expression hardened. Their daughter would make an excellent wife. The room nodded in agreement. She's educated, respected, from a good family, perfect for our image. Every word irritated him more. Finally, he spoke. I'm not marrying her. The room became silent. His mother's smile disappeared instantly. What did you say? I'm not marrying her. For the first time in years, Min-jun openly challenged his family. His father slowly placed down his fork. Do you have someone else? The question hung in the air. Min-jun knew that answering honestly would create a storm. But he was tired of hiding. Yes. His mother's eyes narrowed. Who is she? He met her gaze. Someone I love. The reaction was immediate. Questions exploded around the table. Who was she? What family did she come from? What company was connected to her family? What status did she have? No one asked if she made him happy. That told him everything he needed to know. A few days later, Alma sat quietly in her apartment while Min-jun explained everything. They won't accept me, will they? She asked softly. Min-jun remained silent. That silence was answer enough. Alma looked away. She had expected this, but hearing it hurt. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Min-jun moved closer. I don't care what they think. Alma smiled sadly. You say that now. I mean it. They're your family. And you're the woman I love. His answer came without hesitation. Alma looked into his eyes. There was no doubt there. No uncertainty. Only love. And determination. The attacks started soon afterward. People began asking questions about Min-jun's personal life. Rumors spread among Seoul's elite circles. Some journalists started investigating. The woman who had been watching them from afar continued gathering information. It was only a matter of time before the truth became public. One night, while walking along the Han River, Alma finally voiced the fear she had been carrying. What if all this becomes too much? Min-jun stopped walking. What do you mean? What if your family forces you to choose? His answer came immediately. I already have. Alma felt her heart skip. Min-jun gently held both her hands. Alma. She looked up. I don't want a future without you in it. Tears formed in her eyes. Neither of them needed a long speech. Neither needed dramatic promises. The truth was simple. They loved each other, and they didn't want to lose each other. 2 weeks later, Min-jun called her early in the morning. His voice sounded different. Calm. Certain. Alma, can you meet me? Of course. Today. Something in his tone made her nervous. Yet she agreed. An hour later, she arrived at a small chapel hidden in a quiet part of Seoul. The building wasn't grand. It wasn't famous. It was simple, beautiful, private. When Alma stepped inside, her eyes widened. Min-jun stood waiting, wearing a dark suit. Beside him stood a pastor. And 2 close friends. Nothing more. Nothing less. Alma looked at him in shock. Min-jun. He walked toward her, his eyes never leaving hers. I've spent my whole life letting other people make decisions for me. Alma felt tears forming. My family. He took another step closer. The board. Another step. The media. Now he stood directly in front of her. But this decision belongs to me. His voice softened. And I choose you. Alma could no longer hold back her tears. The emotions overwhelmed her. The fear. The uncertainty. The love. Everything came rushing out at once. Min-jun gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Alma. She smiled through her tears. Are you asking me what I think you're asking me? He laughed softly. Yes. Her heart raced. For a moment, she thought about everything they were risking. His family, his reputation, his company, the public reaction. Then she thought about life without him. And suddenly the answer became easy. Yes. Min-jun smiled. A genuine smile filled with relief and happiness. Yes. Alma nodded. Yes. A short while later, standing before the pastor, they exchanged vows. There were no reporters, no luxury ballroom, no television cameras, no powerful guests, only 2 people deeply in love. And that made it perfect. Min-jun slipped a ring onto her finger. Alma did the same. Their eyes filled with emotion. When the pastor finally pronounced them husband and wife, neither could stop smiling. For a brief moment, all the problems outside disappeared. There was only love, only hope, only the future they dreamed of building together. They kissed as husband and wife for the first time, and everyone present applauded. Alma looked down at her wedding ring and laughed through her tears. I can't believe we actually did this. Min-jun wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Neither can I. What they didn't know was that their secret was already in danger. Because while they celebrated their new beginning, someone had taken photographs. Someone had been watching. Someone who wanted to destroy everything. And soon, the entire city of Seoul would learn the truth. A truth powerful people would do almost anything to stop. Alma woke up to the sound of her phone vibrating nonstop. At first, she thought it was one of her classmates. Maybe Mina. Maybe a family member from Ghana. Still half asleep, she reached for her phone. Then she froze. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of messages. Notifications flooding her screen. Her heart immediately began to race. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Before she could even open the messages, another call came in. It was Mina. Alma answered immediately. Mina? Have you seen the news? Alma sat upright. What news? The silence on the other end lasted only a second. Then Mina said the words that changed everything. They know. Alma felt her stomach drop. Know what? About your marriage. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Her mind refused to process what she had just heard. No. It's everywhere. Alma opened her browser. And there it was. The headline sat at the top of every major entertainment website. Korean billionaire Kang Min-jun secretly marries foreign woman. Another article appeared below it. Who is the mysterious African wife of Hanseong Group's chairman? Then another. And another. And another. Photographs from their wedding. Photos of them together. Photos of Alma walking across campus. Photos taken without her knowledge. Without her permission. Her hands began to shake. The secret was gone. The whole country knew. Within hours, the story exploded across social media. People debated their relationship. Television channels discussed it. Online forums filled with opinions. Some comments were supportive. Many were not. Alma tried not to read them, but curiosity got the better of her. One comment read, "She must be after his money." Another said, "There are thousands of Korean women. Why marry a foreigner?" Another was even worse. Alma quickly locked her phone. She couldn't continue. The words felt like tiny knives. She knew these people didn't know her, but somehow their opinions still hurt, because they weren't attacking a stranger. They were attacking her. By afternoon, reporters had gathered outside her apartment building. Cameras waited near her university. Some journalists followed her whenever she left campus. The peaceful life she once knew disappeared overnight. Everywhere she went, eyes followed her. Questions followed her. Judgment followed her. For the first time since arriving in Korea, Alma felt completely overwhelmed. That evening, Min-jun arrived at her apartment. The moment she opened the door, he knew something was wrong. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. Without saying a word, he pulled her into his arms. Alma tried to stay strong. She really did. But the moment she felt his embrace, the tears returned. "I didn't expect it to be like this." Her voice broke. Min-jun held her tighter. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "This isn't your fault." But both of them knew it wasn't that simple. His world had collided with hers. And now she was paying the price. The next morning brought even more problems. Min-jun was summoned to an emergency board meeting. The atmosphere inside the conference room was tense. Several executives looked unhappy. One director spoke first. "The media attention is affecting investor confidence." Another nodded. "The board is concerned." Min-jun's jaw tightened. Concerned. That was the word they chose. Not concerned about Alma. Not concerned about their happiness. Concerned about money. Concerned about public image. Concerned about headlines. One executive finally said what everyone else was thinking. Perhaps a divorce would solve the situation. The room fell silent. Min-jun slowly looked toward the speaker. His eyes were ice cold. "What did you say?" The executive shifted uncomfortably. "I'm only suggesting what may be best for the company." Min-jun stood. The room immediately became quiet. "I built this company." His voice remained calm, but everyone could hear the warning underneath. "I will not abandon my wife to protect anyone's image." Nobody spoke. Nobody dared. The meeting ended shortly afterward. But the message was clear. The pressure was only beginning. Meanwhile, Alma faced a different battle. One afternoon, while walking across campus, she overheard two students talking nearby. They didn't realize she could hear them. That's her. The billionaire's wife.
Yeah.
She doesn't look special. The words hit harder than she expected. Alma continued walking as if she hadn't heard. But inside, her confidence cracked a little more. Everywhere she went, she felt like she was being judged. Not for her character, not for her achievements, simply for who she was, for where she came from, for who she loved. A few days later, things became even worse. Min-jun's mother requested a meeting. Alma knew it wouldn't be pleasant. Still, she agreed. She wanted peace. She wanted understanding. She wanted a chance. The meeting took place inside an elegant private restaurant. The moment Alma entered, she could feel the older woman's disapproval. Min-jun's mother didn't even attempt to hide it. For several minutes, she spoke politely. Then the mask slipped. You seem like a nice girl. Alma immediately knew what was coming. But there it was. The word nobody likes hearing. But my son belongs in a different world. Alma remained calm. I love him. His mother smiled faintly. Love is not always enough. Alma met her gaze. It is for us. The older woman leaned forward. You have no idea how much damage this marriage is causing. Alma's heart pounded. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. But you are. The words were sharp, deliberate, painful. For a moment, Alma struggled to respond. Then she stood, respectfully, calmly. I didn't marry your son because he's a billionaire. His mother's expression remained unchanged. Alma continued. I married him because he is kind. A pause. Because he respects me. Another pause. And because he loves me. Without waiting for a response, Alma left. But the encounter stayed with her. Especially one question. Would she ever truly be accepted? That night, Alma stood alone on her apartment balcony. The city lights stretched endlessly before her. Normally, Seoul felt beautiful. Tonight, it felt lonely. A tear slid down her cheek. Then another. She was tired. Tired of proving herself. Tired of defending her love. Tired of feeling like she didn't belong. A voice behind her broke the silence. You shouldn't cry alone. She turned. Min-jun stood in the doorway. Without hesitation, he walked over and wrapped his arms around her. Alma leaned against him. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, she whispered the fear she had been carrying. What if they're right? Min-jun gently lifted her chin. What if who is right? The people saying we don't belong together. His answer came instantly. They're wrong. Alma looked into his eyes. How can you be so sure? Min-jun smiled softly. Because every day I spend with you is the happiest day I've had in years. A tear escaped her eye. This time it wasn't from sadness. I don't care what Seoul thinks. His voice was steady. I don't care what the media says. He squeezed her hand. And I don't care what anyone else believes. Alma felt her heart warm. The only thing I care about is us. For the first time in days, she smiled. A real smile. Small, but real. Far away, another pair of eyes watched new information appear on a computer screen. The mysterious woman who had exposed their wedding wasn't finished. In fact, she was only getting started. As she opened a hidden file connected to the Kang family, a slow smile appeared on her face. What she discovered could destroy not only Alma's marriage, but the entire Kang family legacy. And soon, secrets buried for decades would begin to surface. The days after Alma's meeting with Min-jun's mother were some of the hardest she had ever experienced. Every morning brought new headlines. Every afternoon brought new rumors. And every night seemed to end with another battle waiting for them the next day. Yet despite everything, Alma refused to give up. She loved Min-jun, and she knew he loved her. That truth became her anchor in the middle of the storm. Still, something didn't make sense. The hatred from certain members of the Kang family felt deeper than simple disapproval. It felt personal, almost as if they were afraid of something. The question stayed in her mind for days. What were they hiding? One rainy afternoon, Alma visited a university library to work on an assignment. The weather reminded her of the night she first met Min-jun. Back then, life had seemed so simple. Now everything felt complicated. As she searched through online archives for research materials, a news article caught her attention. The article mentioned Kang Min-jun's grandfather, the late Kang Song-ho. Alma paused. She had heard the name many times. According to the media, he was the man who built the Kang family's business empire from almost nothing. A respected businessman. A national icon. A legend. Curious, Alma clicked the article. One article led to another. Then another. Soon, she found herself reading old reports from decades earlier. Most repeated the same story. Kang Song-ho had traveled extensively during his youth before returning to Korea and founding what would later become Hanseong Group. But one article stood out. It briefly mentioned a long stay in West Africa during the 1970s. The information was strangely vague, almost incomplete. Alma frowned. Something about it felt odd. That evening, she brought it up while having dinner with Min-jun. Did your grandfather ever live in Africa? Min-jun looked surprised. Africa. Alma nodded. I found an old article. Min-jun thought for a moment. Actually, yes. You knew? Only a little. What do you mean? My grandfather rarely spoke about that part of his life. Alma immediately became curious. Why not? Min-jun shrugged. I don't know. The answer only raised more questions. Over the following week, Alma continued researching. What started as curiosity slowly became an obsession. The more she searched, the more unusual things she discovered. Several records from that period seemed incomplete. Photographs were missing. Documents had disappeared. Entire sections of history appeared erased. It was as though someone had deliberately removed pieces of the story. And powerful people usually only hide things for one reason. Because the truth is dangerous. One afternoon, Alma received an unexpected message. The sender was unknown. The message contained only one sentence. If you want answers about Kang Song-ho, meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone. Alma stared at the screen. A chill ran through her body. Who sent this? How did they know she was investigating? And more importantly, should she go? The next day, curiosity won. At exactly 2 o'clock, Alma arrived at a small tea shop tucked away in a quiet corner of Seoul. An elderly man sat waiting near the window. The moment she entered, he stood. You must be Alma. Her heart skipped. You know who I am? The man smiled sadly. More people know who you are than you realize. Alma sat carefully across from him. For several moments, neither spoke. Then the elderly man slid an old photograph across the table. Alma picked it up and froze. The picture showed a much younger Kang Song-ho standing beside several African men and women. Everyone was smiling. They looked happy, like family, like friends, not business partners, not strangers. Family. Where did you get this? Alma asked. The old man's expression darkened. I was there. Alma stared. You knew him? The man nodded. For many years. Her pulse quickened. What happened? The old man took a deep breath. Then he revealed a story hidden for decades. Before becoming a billionaire, Kang Song-ho had spent years working in West Africa. During that time, he formed close relationships with local communities. He learned their customs, their languages, their traditions. According to the old man, he even fell deeply in love with an African woman. Alma listened in stunned silence. The story sounded impossible, yet every detail felt genuine. The old man's eyes carried memories too real to fake. He wanted to marry her, the man said quietly. Alma's heart pounded. What happened? The old man looked away. His family found out. Suddenly, everything became clear. A familiar pattern. A powerful family. A forbidden relationship. History repeating itself. The family demanded that he return to Korea. Alma already knew the answer. And he obeyed. The old man nodded slowly. He left. The room became silent. Alma imagined the heartbreak, the pain, the impossible choice. Then she asked the question that mattered most. Why hide this? The elderly man looked directly at her. Because the Kang family spent decades building a perfect image. His voice lowered. And that image had no room for this story. That night, Alma couldn't stop thinking about what she had learned. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Years ago, another Kang man had fallen in love with an African woman. Now history seemed to be repeating itself through Min-jun. But something still felt missing. The story wasn't complete. And deep down, she knew it. The missing piece arrived 2 days later. Inside an envelope left anonymously at her apartment. No sender. No note. Only documents. Old documents. Alma carefully opened them. As she read, her eyes widened. Then widened further. Her hands began shaking. Because what she was reading changed everything. According to the documents, Kang Song-ho hadn't simply loved an African woman. They had a child together. A child whose existence had been hidden from the public for over 40 years. Alma sat frozen, unable to breathe, unable to think. The implications were enormous. The Kang family wasn't merely connected to Africa. Part of the family itself was African. A truth buried for decades. A truth that could shake the entire family empire. A truth someone had desperately tried to erase. When Min-jun arrived that evening, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Alma? She looked up slowly. You need to see this. Minutes later, he sat beside her reading the documents. The color drained from his face. This can't be real. Alma wished she could disagree. But the evidence was convincing. Too convincing. The room became silent. Finally, Min-jun spoke. If this is true, it changes everything. He nodded. It explains why certain people reacted so strongly to our marriage. Alma felt the same realization settling in. Perhaps the family wasn't just worried about public image. Perhaps they were terrified that their carefully hidden history would be exposed. And now someone knew the truth. Someone was sending evidence. Someone wanted this secret uncovered. Neither Alma nor Min-jun realized they were being watched. Across the city, a powerful member of the Kang family received a phone call. The caller's voice trembled. Sir, there's a problem. The man frowned. What problem? The documents. A pause. They've been found. Silence. Then anger. Pure anger. For decades, the secret had remained buried. Protected. Hidden. Controlled. Now it was slipping away. And if the truth reached the media, the consequences would be catastrophic. The man slowly stood from his desk, his face dark with rage. Find out who gave them those documents. And when you do... He paused. His voice became dangerously cold. Stop them. No matter the cost. Meanwhile, Alma sat beside Min-jun, unaware that uncovering the truth had placed both of them in serious danger. What had started as a search for answers had become something much bigger. Something far more dangerous. Because powerful people can tolerate criticism. They can tolerate scandal. But they rarely tolerate secrets being exposed. And the Kang family's biggest secret was finally beginning to surface. The discovery of the Kang family's secret changed everything. For days, Alma and Min-jun barely slept. The documents sat locked away in a secure location, but the truth inside them weighed heavily on both of their minds. If the records were genuine, then someone had spent decades hiding a part of the family's history. And now that secret was beginning to surface. The question was no longer what happened. The question was who was willing to do anything to keep it buried. One evening, Alma sat in Min-jun's penthouse reviewing the documents again. The city lights glowed outside the windows. Normally, she loved the view. Tonight, it felt distant. Her mind was elsewhere. What are you thinking? Min-jun asked. Alma looked up. Someone gave us these documents. Min-jun nodded. Yes. But why now? The question hung in the air. Neither had an answer. Whoever had sent the information clearly wanted the truth exposed. But why wait all these years? And why involve them? Before Min-jun could respond, his phone rang. The expression on his face changed immediately. It was one of his senior executives. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The emergency meeting lasted nearly 3 hours. By the time Min-jun returned home, he looked exhausted. Alma stood immediately. What happened? Min-jun loosened his tie. Our biggest investors are pulling back. Alma stared. What? They claim they're worried about the scandals. His frustration was obvious. The marriage controversy, the media pressure, the rumors. Everything was starting to affect the company. Alma felt guilt rising inside her. If it wasn't for me, Min-jun interrupted her immediately. Don't. But, Alma. His voice softened. This is not your fault. Yet both of them knew someone was deliberately creating problems. The timing was too perfect, too organized, too calculated. Someone wanted Min-jun weakened. A few days later, things became even worse. Private information about their relationship suddenly appeared online. Details nobody else should have known. Messages, meeting locations, personal schedules, even photographs from private events. Alma felt sick reading them. How is this possible? Min-jun's face hardened. Someone close to us is leaking information. The realization sent a chill through the room. A stranger couldn't know these details. Only someone they trusted could. Someone on the inside. The possibility of betrayal hurt more than either of them expected. Over the next several days, Min-jun quietly investigated. Every assistant, every executive, every employee with access to sensitive information. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then one name appeared repeatedly. One of Min-jun's most trusted aides. A man who had worked with him for nearly 8 years. A man Min-jun considered a friend. A man he trusted completely. When the evidence landed on his desk, Min-jun stared at it in disbelief. No, it couldn't be. But the records were clear. Bank transfers, private communications, secret meetings. Ji-hoon had been feeding information to someone outside the company. For months, maybe longer. The confrontation happened the following afternoon. Ji-hoon sat across from Min-jun in a private office. The atmosphere was tense. Neither man spoke for several moments. Finally, Min-jun slid the evidence across the table. Ji-hoon looked at it, then lowered his head. That silence was all the confirmation Min-jun needed. Why? The question came out quietly, almost painfully. Ji-hoon closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Min-jun's jaw tightened. Sorry? His voice rose. You betrayed me. Ji-hoon remained silent. For years, I trusted you. Still silence. Finally, Ji-hoon spoke. They offer me money. Min-jun stared at him. Money? After 8 years. After friendship. After loyalty. Everything had been sold for money. But something felt incomplete. Min-jun could sense it. Who? Ji-hoon hesitated. Then he revealed a name. A name neither Min-jun nor Alma expected. That evening, Min-jun arrived home carrying the weight of the truth. Alma immediately knew something had happened. Who was it? Min-jun looked at her. His expression was grim. The person behind everything. Alma held her breath. Who? Min-jun's answer stunned her. My uncle. The room fell silent. Alma blinked. What? My uncle has been paying Ji-hoon. The revelation hit like a hammer. His uncle, a respected member of the Kang family, a man who publicly supported Min-jun, a man who attended family gatherings, a man everyone trusted. Alma slowly sat down. Why would he do that? Min-jun's face darkened. Because he wants control. Everything suddenly made sense. The media attacks, the leaked information, the investor panic, the pressure, the scandals. None of it had happened by accident. Someone had been creating chaos from the shadows. And that someone was family. The following week brought another devastating discovery. Min-jun's uncle wasn't acting alone. Several executives inside Hanseong Group were secretly helping him. Together, they were trying to force Min-jun out of leadership. The marriage scandal had simply given them an opportunity. A weapon. Alma couldn't believe it. They're using us. Min-jun nodded. They think if they destroy my reputation, they can take everything. The realization was painful. The people smiling at family dinners. The people shaking hands in board meetings. The people claiming loyalty. Many had been working against him all along. That night, Alma found Min-jun standing alone on the balcony. The city stretched endlessly below. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Alma gently stepped beside him. You okay? Min-jun laughed softly. No. At least he was honest. Alma reached for his hand. He squeezed hers immediately. The worst part is in the business. She listened quietly. It's realizing how many people were pretending. His voice carried genuine hurt. Alma understood. Betrayal always hurts most when it comes from people you love, people you trust, people you never expected. For several moments, they stood together in silence. Then Min-jun looked at her. His eyes were tired, but determined. They want us to break. Alma nodded. I know. They want us fighting each other. I know. A small smile appeared on his face. But we're not giving them what they want. Alma smiled too. No. For the first time in days, hope returned. Just a little, but enough. Unfortunately, their enemies weren't finished. Far from it. A few days later, a major television network announced an upcoming investigative report. The teaser aired nationwide. Millions watched, and Alma's blood ran cold as she saw the headline. The hidden truth about the Kang family. The report promised explosive revelations. Family secrets, business corruption, scandal, everything. Someone was preparing to expose the past. The same past connected to the documents Alma and Min-jun had uncovered. The same secret that powerful people had spent decades trying to hide. And if the report aired, the consequences could be enormous. Not only for the Kang family, but for everyone connected to them, including Alma. Later that night, an anonymous message arrived on Alma's phone. She opened it. Her heart stopped. There was no greeting, no explanation, only a single sentence. Stop investigating, or someone you love will pay the price. Alma felt fear crawl through her body. For the first time since this began, the danger felt real. Not rumors, not gossip, not headlines. A threat, a direct threat. And suddenly, she realized something terrifying. The people they were fighting weren't just powerful, they were desperate. And desperate people are capable of almost anything. The threat on Alma's phone changed everything. Until now, the attacks had been painful. The gossip, the media, the betrayal, the family pressure. But this was different. This wasn't about reputation anymore. Someone was threatening the people they loved. And that crossed a line. For the first time since uncovering the Kang family secret, Alma felt genuinely afraid. Not for herself, for Min-jun, for her family back in Ghana, for everyone caught in the middle of a fight they never asked for. That night, Alma showed the message to Min-jun. His expression darkened immediately. This is serious. Alma nodded. I know. For several moments, neither spoke. The silence felt heavy. Finally, Min-jun looked directly at her. We can still walk away. Alma stared at him. What? We can stop investigating. His voice was calm. We can forget everything. Alma knew he wasn't talking about the secret. He was talking about protecting her. Protecting their future. Protecting the people they loved. But after everything they had endured, walking away felt impossible. Too many lies had already caused too much pain. Alma slowly shook her head. No. Min-jun looked at her carefully. No. No. Her voice became firmer. If we stop now, they win. The room fell silent. Then, slowly, a smile appeared on Min-jun's face. Not because he wanted more conflict, but because he knew exactly why he loved her. Alma wasn't fearless. She was simply brave enough to keep moving despite her fear. And that made all the difference. The next morning, they made a decision. No more hiding. No more reacting. No more letting others control the story. It was time to fight back. Together, Min-jun assembled a small team he trusted completely. Not executives. Not family members. People whose loyalty had been proven over time. Lawyers. Investigators. Financial experts. For the first time, they began looking into his uncle's activities without holding back. What they found shocked everyone. The deeper they dug, the uglier the truth became. Secret accounts. Illegal business deals. Bribery. Manipulated company records. Years of corruption hidden beneath a respectable public image. The very people accusing Alma of damaging the family's reputation had been damaging it themselves for years. Meanwhile, Alma focused on another part of the puzzle. The hidden story of Kang Song-ho. The more she learned, the more heartbreaking it became. The young businessman had genuinely loved the African woman. Friends from that period confirmed it. Old letters confirmed it. Photographs confirmed it. This wasn't a rumor. It was real. A love story that had been buried by powerful people afraid of public opinion. Alma couldn't stop thinking about it. The similarities to her own life were impossible to ignore. Different generation. Same prejudice. Same fear. Same attempt to control who someone could love. A week later, the television investigation finally aired. The entire country watched. Millions of viewers expected another scandal involving Alma and Min-jun. Instead, they received something very different. The report exposed years of corruption connected to members of the Kang family. Financial misconduct, secret deals, abuse of power, and most importantly, evidence. Real evidence. The public reaction was immediate. For months, many people had blamed Alma for the family's problems. Now they were seeing a completely different picture. The real threat had never been the marriage. The real threat was corruption hiding behind wealth and influence. The following morning, social media exploded. People began questioning the narrative they had been fed. Some of the same people who once criticized Alma now defended her. Others apologized publicly. Not everyone changed their opinion, but the tide was finally turning. For the first time, Alma felt like people were seeing her for who she truly was. Not a headline, not a scandal, a human being. The pressure on Min-jun's uncle intensified rapidly. Investigations were launched. Business partners began distancing themselves. Several executives resigned. The empire he had quietly built in the shadows started collapsing. And as desperate people often do, he made a mistake. A huge mistake. Late one evening, one of Min-jun's investigators arrived with new evidence. The room fell silent as documents were placed on the table. Min-jun read them first, then looked up in disbelief. Alma immediately noticed. "What is it?" Min-jun handed her the papers. Her eyes widened. The documents confirmed something nobody expected. The child from Kang Song-ho's relationship with the African woman had not disappeared. That branch of the family still existed. There were living relatives, living descendants, people who had spent decades unaware that they were connected to one of Korea's most powerful families. Alma could barely process it. The secret wasn't just history. It was the present. The discovery changed everything. Suddenly, the family's secret became impossible to contain. The truth was too large, too well documented, too important. And once the information reached journalists, the story spread quickly. The reaction surprised everyone. Instead of outrage, many people expressed sympathy. People saw a grandfather forced to abandon the woman he loved, a child hidden from history, a family divided by fear and prejudice. For many Koreans, the story felt tragic rather than scandalous. Then came the moment nobody expected. A major press conference. Live television. National coverage. Every major news outlet attended. Alma stood nervously backstage. Beside her stood Min-jun. Thousands of thoughts raced through her mind. What if this goes wrong? Min-jun smiled softly. What if it goes right? Alma laughed. Even now, he could make her smile. When they walked onto the stage together, camera flashes filled the room. Questions immediately started flying. The reporters were eager. The audience was curious. The entire country was watching. Min-jun stepped forward first. His voice remained calm, steady, confident. For nearly 20 minutes, he answered questions honestly. About the corruption, about the family secrets, about the investigations. Then came the question everyone wanted answered. Do you regret marrying Alma? The room became silent. Every camera focused on him. Every reporter waited. Min-jun didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. No. The answer echoed through the room. No. The reporter repeated. Min-jun smiled. Marrying Alma was the best decision I've ever made. Alma felt tears forming instantly. The room remained silent. Then Min-jun continued. My wife is not the problem. His voice grew stronger. Prejudice is the problem. Another pause. Fear is the problem. Another pause. People judging others because they come from a different place is the problem. The room listened carefully. For months, she has endured criticism she never deserved. His eyes found Alma's. And through all of it, she remained stronger than anyone I know. Alma could no longer hold back her tears. Not because she was sad, but because she felt loved. Truly loved. Publicly. Without conditions. Without fear. As the press conference ended, something unexpected happened. People stood and applauded. Not everyone, but many. Reporters, guests, observers. The applause started slowly, then grew louder, and louder, and louder. For the first time since their wedding was exposed, Alma felt hope. Real hope. Maybe things could change. Maybe people could change. Maybe love could win after all. But the battle wasn't over yet. Because while Alma and Min-jun were winning in public, one final confrontation remained. The man responsible for so much pain. The man who had betrayed his own family. The man who had spent months trying to destroy them. And he wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. The final showdown was coming. And it would determine the future of everything. Their marriage. Their family. Their legacy. Their love. The weeks following the press conference felt different. For the first time in a long while, Alma woke up without fear sitting in her chest. The endless attacks had slowed. The rumors were fading. The headlines were changing. People who once judged her without knowing her story were finally beginning to see the truth. Not everyone changed their opinion, but enough did. And that was a start. Meanwhile, the investigations into Min-jun's uncle continued. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Years of corruption. Secret payments, manipulation, betrayal. Everything eventually came to light. The powerful man who had spent months trying to destroy Alma and Min-jun's lives could no longer hide behind influence or family connections. One by one, his allies abandoned him. His carefully built network collapsed. And eventually, he was forced to face the consequences of his actions. For Alma and Min-jun, it wasn't about revenge. It never had been. They simply wanted the truth. And finally, the truth had won. One evening, Min-jun stood beside the large windows of his office overlooking Seoul. The city sparkled beneath the night sky. A few months ago, he had felt trapped, pulled in every direction, expected to choose between love and family, between happiness and duty. Now, for the first time in years, he felt free. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Alma entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. His face immediately brightened. Some things never changed. Thinking again, she asked. Min-jun smiled. Maybe. Alma handed him a cup. You do that a lot. I learned from you. She laughed. And here I thought I was a good influence. You are. The answer came so quickly that Alma couldn't help smiling. As they sat together, Min-jun revealed an idea he had been quietly working on. Alma, I want to build something. She looked at him curiously. A company? No. A foundation. Now she was interested. A foundation for what? Min-jun leaned forward. For opportunity. Alma listened carefully. For students. For cultural exchange. For young people from Africa and Korea. His eyes lit up as he spoke. For people who need support chasing their dreams. Alma felt her heart warm. After everything they had been through, he was still thinking about helping others. That's beautiful. Min-jun smiled. It was actually your idea. Alma laughed. I don't remember saying that. You didn't. He reached for her hand. You lived it. Months later, their foundation officially launched. The project connected students, entrepreneurs, and young professionals from Korea and several African countries. Scholarships were created. Educational programs were introduced. Cultural exchange events brought people together. The response exceeded every expectation. People who had never met before began sharing ideas, opportunities, and friendships. The bridge between 2 worlds grew stronger. And at the center of it all stood Alma and Min-jun. Not as symbols of controversy, but as symbols of possibility. The biggest surprise came from Min-jun's family, especially his mother. For months, their relationship had remained strained, polite, careful, distant. Then one afternoon, his mother requested a private meeting. Alma was nervous, very nervous. She wasn't sure what to expect. When she arrived, she found the older woman waiting quietly. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Min-jun's mother did something Alma never expected. She apologized. Simple, honest, sincere. I was wrong. Alma blinked. The words felt almost unreal. The older woman looked down briefly before continuing. I spent so much time worrying about what people would think. A pause. I forgot to consider what truly mattered. Alma listened quietly. My son's happiness. Tears filled the older woman's eyes. And yours. For the first time, Alma saw not the intimidating woman who had opposed her marriage, but a mother who had made mistakes, a mother trying to fix them. Slowly, Alma reached across the table and took her hand. Neither woman said another word. They didn't need to. Sometimes healing begins with a simple gesture. As the seasons changed, life finally settled into something peaceful. The scandals became history. The investigations ended. The family secret, once buried for decades, was acknowledged openly. Even more importantly, connections were established with the descendants of Kang Song-ho's African family. Lost relatives met for the first time. Stories were shared. Questions were answered. A wound that had remained open for generations finally began to heal. One beautiful spring morning, Alma and Min-jun returned to the place where everything began. The same street, the same neighborhood, the same city, Seoul. A light rain was falling. Alma laughed as she looked up at the sky. Not again. Min-jun smiled. It seems rain follows us. Or maybe we follow the rain. They walked side by side beneath a single umbrella, just like the first night they met. For a moment, neither spoke. The memories came flooding back. The chance meeting, the first coffee, the secret wedding, the betrayals, the pain, the fight. Every step had led them here. As they reached the Han River, Min-jun stopped walking. Alma turned toward him. What is it? Instead of answering immediately, he smiled. A smile she knew well. The kind that usually meant something important was coming. Then, he gently placed a hand on her stomach. Alma's eyes widened. A tear instantly formed. She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Because after everything they had survived, they were about to begin their greatest chapter yet. A family, a future, a new generation, a new legacy. Min-jun wrapped his arms around her. Neither noticed the people passing nearby. Neither cared. The world could keep moving. For this moment, all that mattered was them. Years later, people would tell their story in different ways. Some would call it a billionaire romance. Others would call it a story about courage. Some would talk about the scandals. Others would remember the secrets. But those who truly understood would know the real story. It was never about wealth. It was never about power. It was never about status. It was about two people from different worlds who chose each other when it would have been easier to walk away. Two people who refused to let fear decide their future. Two people who proved that love is not measured by where you come from, but by who stands beside you when life becomes difficult. And in the end, that love changed not only their lives, it changed the lives of everyone around them. As the sun broke through the clouds above Seoul, Alma rested her head on Min-jun's shoulder. The future stretched before them, bright, hopeful, full of possibility. And for the first time since that rainy evening when a stranger caught her before she fell, they knew one thing for certain. No matter what came next, they would face it together.